để tiếp theo chương trình thì chúng ta sẽ nghe một cái báo cáo từ một đồng nghiệp ở Anh về nghiên cứu cái vòng đánh giá chất lượng ngoại kiểm tại Việt Nam cho các dấu ấn sinh học trong ung thư vú. Một cái tác giả, một báo cáo viên mà cũng rất nhiệt tình gắn bó với giải phẫu bệnh Việt Nam một số năm gần đây. I would like to introduce and invite the Professor Antonio from England with his talk about a Vietnam external quality assessment ring study for breast cancer biomarker. Please, Professor.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction, and thank you very much to the organising committee for inviting me to Ho Chi Minh City. So I'd like to start this presentation by emphasising that this is not my study. This is the study of all these participating fiddles. I was just to help and advise. In addition to my colleagues at the Centre for Standardisation and Quality Control of Medical Laboratories in Ho Chi Minh City. As you're aware, immunohistochemistry supports the diagnosis of malignancies in the vast majority of laboratories, almost like a special stain. More recently, so for estrogen receptors, it's now almost 35 years since immunohistochemistry is used as the gold standard to predict the response of patients with breast cancer to hormonal therapy. So now widely used as a predictive marker, so it has direct implications on how the patient will be managed in breast cancer. And testing of all newly diagnosed breast cancer patients for HER2, ER, and PR is now recommended by international consensus groups such as that of ASCO and the College of American Pathologists. Similarly, Ki-67 is becoming more widely appreciated for its usefulness in helping identify patients with early stage breast cancer, which are HER2 negative, whether they're likely to respond to chemotherapy or not. So there's a need for precise and reproducible results and good quality control. But quality control itself won't detect low or poor reproducibility if you set your standards very low. And there's evidence over many years of the problems when laboratories produce particularly false negative results for estrogen receptors. It's well documented. Back in the 2007, Canada had a major problem where there were many false negative cases being reported. And part of that was nobody taking control of the quality control system, or participation in an external quality assessment scheme, such as those offered by College of American Pathologists, UK NEQAS, and the Royal College of Australia EQA program. And there is now evidence, we published some of this evidence, that EQA is effective in detecting suboptimal performance and improving results, particularly in the field of breast cancer. And so, along with colleagues, particularly Dr. Tu and colleagues at the Centre for Standardisation and Quality Control of Medical Laboratories in Ho Chi Minh City, we devised or came up with the idea of running a EQA program in Vietnam. And the aim of this pilot study was to investigate the reliability and reproducibility of breast cancer biomarkers testing in Vietnamese laboratories. So we aim to look at the intra-laboratory reproducibility. So if you have laboratory testing a sample, or several samples, this study has, do they get exactly the same result on 2 different occasions? So that's intra-laboratory testing. And if those same cases, we looked at 40 cases, so quite a number of cases, if different laboratories stain those same 40 cases, do they also get exactly the same results? Obviously, in an ideal world, they would, and that was the hypothesis that we were testing. And then we analyze the results with appropriate statistical tests. I'll present today the type of statistical analysis we'll be using to publish the results. We haven't submitted the results for publication yet, but we hope to very shortly. In addition, we collected technical variables, technical information to try and look at the different methods, antibodies people are using to detect these important markers. The results have already been provided by CSQL to the participant laboratories, but we have yet to submit the paper for publication. So I'd just like to emphasize first that the concept, the idea of this was relatively simple. It's more complex. The logistics were quite complex, and I congratulate the CSQL for achieving this. It was not easy. And that is for each of those 10 laboratories to test everybody else's cases. This isn't usually done. If you look at most frequency testing programs or external quality assessment programs, there is considered to be expert laboratory who sends out cases, and they consider to be to have an optimal result on, and every laboratory tests just a few cases. What we did was completely different. Everybody tested everybody else's slides, so they were using their testing, their systems to test cases which have been fixed and processed in 10 different centres. So quite a larger challenge than most quality assurance programs would offer. And this is some of the details. Basically, each participating laboratory was asked to put together 4 cases of breast cancer with different levels of HER2 expression, HER2 3+, HER2 2+, but without any gene amplification, HER2 1+, and HER2 0. So there was an expected level of HER2 expression in each of the 4 cases provided by each of the 10 laboratories, but the expression of estrogen receptors, progesterone receptors, and Ki67 was variable, so it would be different in the cases provided by each laboratory. So each laboratory tested these cases again, so they tested the cases for these 4 biomarkers again, and then provided 40 unstained sections to the Centre for Standardization, Quality Control, and in Medical Laboratory of Ho Chi Minh City. I'll now refer to that laboratory as CSQL. Okay. So CSQL sent the 40 unstained slides to each of the 10 laboratories, who then tested them for using the recognized guidelines for scoring HER2, ER, and PR. And for Ki67, there was agreement that the slides between the 10 centres, that the Ki67 should be assessed with respect to global expression and intervals of 8% positivity nuclear staining in the tumour cell. So the stain slides, along with the scores for each slide, were returned to CSQL along with the main technical information on antibodies used. So each pathologist individually scored each of the slides, so that they basically had 400 assessments to do, because there's 40 cases of breast cancer provided, 40 cases provided by the 10 laboratories. And a meeting was later arranged at Ho Chi Minh City Oncology Hospital by Dr. Tu for us to discuss the results either by the pathologist attending or by Zoom. With respect to analysis of the result, so I should emphasize that the expected result was the consensus value achieved by each pathologist. So there was no expert centre saying that this is what we expected to see. The consensus was the median value, or in some cases the mode, and the interquartile range of values provided by each pathologist. There was some proviso to that with respect to estrogen receptors and progesterone receptor, because the cut point for determining positivity is set at 3. If a laboratory achieved less than 3 when the median value was at 3 or above, then that was considered to be outside the range considered to be acceptable. And similarly, as HER2 involves a scoring system with a range of 0, 1, 2, 3 plus, which up to date, which now all have clinical relevance. We only took the median value, HER2 as the expected value, which also turned out to be the mode, i.e. that's achieved by the majority of the pathologists. So we used weighted Kappa's coefficient to look at the reproducibility of testing, both on 2 occasions by the same laboratory and also between, and we are also using it to look at the agreement between all laboratories. So I don't have that data today, as we're currently running that analysis. And chi-squared test looked to determine the expected results, if the expected results were achieved on a significant number of cases. And lastly, we looked at the coefficient of variation to compare the results for the 4 different markers between the laboratories. So I'll just present some of those results. So this are the results for the laboratories testing the same cases on 2 different occasions. And this is the Cohen's kappa for estrogen receptor. So estrogen receptors, there was a moderate agreement in the kappa of around 4 for progesterone receptors. The level of agreement was substantial. Around 40 cases, some laboratories were unable to test all 40 cases, so some instances there was only 38 results. For testing on 2 cases, but in the majority of cases there were 40 by all laboratories. So this gives the level of agreement, so reasonably good for estrogen receptors, progesterone receptors, also very good for HER2, and as you might expect, there was less agreement with the assessment of P67 on 2 different occasions, with a kappa value only around 2. I'm just showing 18 of the different cases here, what the consensus was for each of those cases. So we did that for all 40 cases and listed the results. And this is the example of the testing by one laboratory on all the cases. So each laboratory was having to do this type of testing on 40 cases. So this is just one example of one laboratory, the results they were achieving on 4 of the cases for the 4 different markers. Okay, so far this is the laboratory reproducibility that we've, this is the data that we've got. We're also doing a further analysis to provide kappa coefficient to look at interlaboratory reproducibility, which will basically analyze 400 assessments. So this is the 10 different laboratories. As I said, they each tested 40 cases, and this is the proportion of cases for which they achieved the expected result. On the bottom here you can see the coefficient of variation. Coefficient variation was, so the greatest variation between laboratories in getting optimal results was highest for Q67, 22.6, and lowest for HER2. This is some of the technical data that we collected. There's only 10 laboratories participating, so the amount of technical data that we have is limited. But already you can see that for Q67 there is greater variation of antibodies being used, and this, besides the scoring assessment, probably provided a greater variability in results. Also, perhaps surprisingly, some of the technical variables used for the 4 different markers were almost identical, and it's debatable whether that should be. I mean, for estrogen receptors, progesterone receptors, and most probably Q67, you want to be the most sensitive, the most stringent antigen retrieval system, where in order to avoid false negative results, whereas for HER2, there is more of a danger getting false positive results. So this type of data perhaps needs more analysis, more consideration, because there appears to be for laboratories to use a very similar different markers. So after statistical analysis, the results were presented to the participating labs. The impact of the study, the main aim of it is to be educational, so everybody learns from each other about how to get the optimal results. And if the pilot run is successful, and it is to have been successful, we'll look to run further EQA circulations. That is the Centre for Standardisation and Quality Control of Medical Laboratories in Ho Chi Minh City will be running further EQA runs in the future. And as I mentioned, we're in the process of submitting this for publication, and everybody involved will be on the authorship. So, in summary then, the first EQA held within Vietnam for these important breast cancer biomarkers, and it sets a baseline as to the current level of reproducibility for these assays in the country. We've also accumulated some interesting data, particularly on HER2 low expression. We've got quite a lot of assessments on HER2 low expression, and also some interesting data from Q67, which we'll refer to when we publish the results. So there was a significant level of reproducibility for all 4 biomarkers, with HER2 giving the least variation and Q67 the greatest variation. And as there is evidence that continual participation in EQA improves quality results, we're confident that the continued participation in such a program will increase the level of reproducibility for these important biomarkers and indeed others, not just breast cancer. And now the most important part of this presentation is to acknowledge the hard work and participation of all the different centres, the pathologists, these were the people doing the hard work. I was just trying to help along with Dr. Tu to make it happen. And particularly Dr. Laboratory at Ho Chi Minh City Oncology Hospital, and also the Centre for Standardization and Quality Control and Medical Laboratory of Ho Chi Minh City, and at least 3 colleagues from this centre here today listening to the talk. And I hope your name is correct this time. The Roche Diagnostics helped with some of the logistics and took some financial support. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Anthony Rhodes from England, with very valuable presentation today. I think the quality of the medical testing and all in pathological examination is very important, but now it's one of the biggest problems now in Vietnam. So we appreciate very highly with your work and support for Vietnamese pathology. Thank you very much.